Gerald signs a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,800 a month. Brandon signs a mortgage on a 3-bedroom house for $2,100 a month in principal and interest. They both think they made the smart call. They are both partially right, and they are both ignoring something that will quietly determine which one ends up wealthier. Not in 5 years, but in 20. Here's the problem with every rent versus buy debate you've ever seen. The homeowner says renting is throwing money away. The renter says buying is a trap full of hidden costs. Neither of them is lying. Both of them are cherry picking. This video does not pick a side. What it does is run every number honestly, the ones people put on thumbnails and the ones they bury in the footnotes. By the end of this, you will know exactly which path built more wealth over 20 years, why the answer is more complicated than either side admits, and what the math looks like for your actual situation. Gerald and Brandon are both 30 years old, same city, same $65,000 salary, same $40,000 saved. The only variable is what they do with that money and where they choose to live. Gerald rents a 2-bedroom apartment for $1,800 per month. He takes his entire $40,000 and puts every dollar into a total market index fund. No mortgage, no maintenance calls, no property taxes. He sets up a $500 monthly contribution and does not think about it again. His friends ask why he isn't buying. He says he's investing instead. They nod and change the subject. Nobody is impressed. Brandon uses his $40,000 as a down payment on a $320,000 home. 12.5% down, just enough to get in. His mortgage is a 30-year fixed loan at 7% interest. Principal and interest comes to $1,924. Add property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and PMI, and his total monthly housing cost lands at approximately $2,600. Brandon drives past his house every morning. He tells his parents he's building equity. He feels like an adult. On day one, Brandon looks like the obvious winner. He's building equity with every payment. His neighbors can't evict him. His landlord can't raise his rent. He has a yard. He has roots. Gerald pays $1,800 a month and has nothing to show for it at the end of the year. Or so the argument goes. Here's what that argument misses. Gerald's housing cost is $1,800. Brandon's housing cost is $2,600. That's an $800 per month difference, $9,600 per year. Gerald invests that $800 difference every single month on top of his $500 contribution. That's $1,300 per month going into the market. Brandon has zero investment account. Every extra dollar goes toward the house. At the end of year one, Gerald's portfolio is worth roughly $17,500. Brandon's investment portfolio is zero. Brandon has made about $23,100 in mortgage payments. Of that, roughly $21,700 went to interest and PMI. Only about $1,400 actually reduced his loan balance. This is the part nobody tells you about the early years of a mortgage. You are mostly just paying the bank. Let's talk about the real costs of homeownership that almost never make it into the debate. Closing costs 5% of the purchase price. On a $320,000 home, that's $6,400 to $16,000 gone before he makes a single payment. That money does not build equity. It evaporates at the closing table. PMI, because he put down less than 20%, the lender charges him $150, $200 per month. He will pay that until the loan balance drops below 80% of the original value. At 7% interest with a small down payment that can easily take 8-10 years. PMI protects the bank, not Brandon. Maintenance and repairs budget 2% of the home's value per year. On $320,000, that's $3,200 to $6,400 annually. Some years it's a $150 faucet. Other years it's a $9,000 chick replacement at 10 p.m. on a Friday in July. These costs are not optional, they are scheduled. You just don't know the exact date yet. Property taxes national average is roughly 1.1%. On this home, that's about $3,500 a year, $292 every single month, whether you use the house or not. Opportunity cost: Brandon locked $40,000 inside a wall. That money is not compounding and is not liquid. If Gerald had put the same $40,000 into the market at the start, it would be worth roughly $44,000 by the end of year 1. None of these costs appear in the mortgage payment. All of them appear in the actual bank account. By year 5, Gerald has invested $40,000 upfront plus $1,300 per month for 60 months, $40,000 plus $78,000 in contributions. At roughly 10% average annual returns, his portfolio sits somewhere between $185,000 and $240,000. He has paid $108,000 in rent, zero equity, zero asset, but $185,000, $240,000 in liquid investable wealth. Brandon has made 60 mortgage payments totaling about $156,000 in housing costs. His principal balance has dropped from $280,000 to roughly $264,000, only about $16,000 of principal paid down. His home has appreciated at 3.5% annually and is now worth about $380,000. His equity is approximately $116,000. Of that, $60,000 came from appreciation he didn't control. Only $16,000 came from actually paying down the loan. He has also spent roughly $18,000 on maintenance, repairs, and PMI. None of that built equity. At year 5, Brandon has $116,000 in home equity. Gerald has significantly more in liquid investments and no hard asset. Brandon looks behind, but he has one thing Gerald never has: leverage. He used $40,000 to control a $320,000 asset. That roughly 8-to-1 leverage amplified his return on the appreciation. If the market had crashed and the home dropped 20%, it would have amplified the loss the same way. Leverage is not magic. It's a multiplier that works in both directions. Rents don't stay flat. In most U.S. markets, they have risen 3–4% per year. By year 10, Gerald is paying about $2,400 per month. The monthly gap over Brandon has shrunk from $800 to roughly $200. He is still investing more, but not by nearly as much. His portfolio, with front-loaded contributions that tapered as rent rose, sits around $310,000, $330,000. Brandon's home is now worth approximately $453,000. Remaining mortgage balance is about $248,000. Equity is roughly $205,000. He has spent around $35,000 on maintenance, repairs, and PMI over the decade. At year 10, Gerald is still ahead in total liquid wealth. But Brandon has something Gerald will never have: a fixed housing cost. While Gerald's rent climbed from $1,800 to $2,400, Brandon kept paying the same $2,600. His principal and interest payment never changed. That stability has real economic value, especially when inflation runs hot and rents climb faster than incomes. By year 20, Gerald's rent has climbed to about $3,200 per month. His ability to invest the difference has been heavily compressed. His portfolio sits roughly in the $480,000, $530,000 range at 10% average returns. He has paid approximately $480,000 in total rent. He owns nothing. He has about $500,000 in the market. Brandon's home is worth approximately $640,000. Remaining mortgage is about $222,000. Equity is roughly $418,000. He has spent about $70,000 on maintenance and repairs over 2 decades. He also has options Gerald does not: refinance, tap equity, or sell and move. Final snapshot: Gerald, $500,000 in liquid investments, zero hard asset, rent still rising. Brandon, $418,000 in home equity, a hard asset with leverage amplification, and fixed housing costs that gave him budget predictability Gerald never had. Neither of them made the wrong decision. Both made a decision that worked under different assumptions about how rent, home prices, and the stock market would move. Here is what the real math actually tells us. Renting wins when you invest the difference. Every single dollar, every single month without exception. If Gerald had spent the $800 gap instead of investing it, he would have nothing. You are in a high cost of living market where the rent-to-price ratio is unfavorable. You need flexibility, job change, city move, life change. Transaction costs of buying and selling in under 5 years almost always guarantee a loss. Buying when you stay. The longer you stay, the more the fixed cost advantage compounds. The person who buys at 30 and stays until 60 captures decades of appreciation and decades of fixed payments while everything else gets more expensive. Your local rent-to-price ratio supports it. A common rule of thumb: if monthly rent is at or above roughly 0.7% of the home's purchase price, buying is often competitive. You treat the home as a home, not a get-rich-quick strategy. People who flip every 5 years mostly pay the transaction costs and hand the gains back. The honest answer almost nobody talks about. The most financially powerful move is not rent versus buy. It is doing whichever one your market supports and investing aggressively regardless. The renter who invests the difference builds wealth. The homeowner who eliminates consumer debt and increases retirement contributions builds wealth. The person who picks a side and uses it as an excuse not to invest builds nothing. Gerald bet on flexibility, liquidity, and the stock market. Brandon bet on leverage, stability, and appreciation. After 20 years, they are both genuinely wealthy. But how they got there, what it cost them, and what risks they carried the entire way could not be more different. The most important question is not, should I rent or should I buy? It is this: did I include everything? The closing costs, the PMI, the maintenance, the rent increases, the opportunity cost of the down payment, the discipline required to actually invest the difference. Because the answer that includes everything is the only answer that actually matters for your situation. If this gave you a clearer picture of how these two paths actually compare, not the bumper sticker version, but the real version, hit like. It genuinely helps. Subscribe for weekly videos that break down financial topics completely, honestly, with real math and no agenda. And drop a comment: are you team rent, team buy, or somewhere in between? Because if you're doing the math correctly, there is no universal answer. There is only your market, your discipline, and your timeline. And that's the only version of this question that actually matters. See you in the next one.